The academy floated high above a distant gas giant, its silver towers gleaming under the light of twin suns. Students from countless worlds walked the corridors, their skin colors, shapes, and forms a dizzying mix of alien diversity. Each student carried the weight of their planet's pride and stories. Among these varied beings, humans were a myth. They were banned from the academy, officially forbidden to attend, and most of the alien students treated this ban as a joke dot in one of the largest lecture halls. A group of students gathered around the main holoscreen. Jisoo, with her pale blue skin and long black hair, laughed as she read from the academy's records. "Humans are banned because they are weak and loud," she said, shaking her head. "Can you believe anyone would take them seriously?" Hannah, a student from a desert world, tilted her head and snorted. Her eyes glowed faintly in amusement. Weak? They can barely survive on their own planet. How can they be a threat here? Her voice carried through the hall, making a few other students chuckle. Timon, who came from a forest planet, leaned against the railing and watched his peers. He laughed too, though a part of him felt curiosity stir in his chest. He had read the stories about humans in the archives, but he had never seen them. To him, they were just old tales, exaggerated for effect. Yet something about their stubbornness in the records made him pause. The students were not alone in their teasing. Across the academy, in dormitories and common areas, humans were a favorite subject for jokes. There were songs, chants, and even games mocking their supposed weakness. One favorite activity involved predicting which human would fail first in a simulated mission. Most of the students were confident that any human would crumble under pressure. Among the laughter, one student remained quiet. Yuna, a calm student with soft green skin and silver eyes, sat in the corner of the hall. She did not join the teasing. Something in the records felt wrong to her. The humans were presented as fragile, yet the archives hinted at missions that went against reason, missions that humans completed when no one else would. She felt a knot of unease in her stomach. Could these stories be hiding the truth? The lecture began with Professor Kale, a tall alien with segmented arms and a voice that resonated through the hall. "Today, we will review the history of the human ban," he announced. "I know many of you find it amusing, but the archives contain vital lessons about our past. Pay attention." His words did little to curb the laughter that followed, but Yuna's gaze sharpened. Professor Kale activated the holoscreen. Images flickered into life, showing early human space missions. Small, primitive ships floated in the void, surrounded by the vast darkness of space. The missions looked dangerous and hopeless. Jisoo clutched her stomach as she laughed. "Look at that. They are barely keeping the engines running." She shook her head in disbelief. Hannah elbowed Timon, still chuckling. "They will crash before they even reach orbit." Timon forced a smile, but he felt a strange admiration for the humans' determination. Even with such primitive technology, they were moving forward. Every attempt they made was filled with risk. Yet they did not give up. The screen changed to show humans landing on hostile planets, their suits battered, supplies running low, and teams working tirelessly despite exhaustion. The audience's laughter began to falter as the footage continued. There was a raw energy in the humans' actions, a stubborn refusal to quit even when survival seemed impossible. Yuna's eyes were fixed on the screen. She noticed the details that most students ignored. The way humans worked together, protecting one another even when their own survival was at risk. The small acts of courage, of ingenuity, that went unnoticed in the records were beginning to tell a different story. This was not the story of weak, loud, failing creatures. This was the story of beings who refused to stop, no matter the odds. Jisoo leaned closer to Hannah, her laughter fading. "Wait, are they still going? Even after the engines failed?" She frowned, confused by the persistence of the humans. Professor Kale's voice filled the hall once more. Humans are not only survivors. They are determined beyond what logic can explain. They continue when others would surrender. Remember this as you watch. His words were calm, almost warning, but many students still didn't fully grasp their meaning. Teeman whispered to Hannah, almost to himself, They don't run, even when it's hopeless. Isn't that strange? Hannah shook her head, unsure how to respond. None of the other species she knew had this kind of determination. On her desert planet, survival was about knowing when to retreat, when to preserve life. Humans seemed to ignore that instinct entirely. The lecture ended, but the students could not stop talking about what they had seen. Some dismissed it as luck or stubbornness, but Una felt a deep sense of unease. She had seen the strength in humans that no other student could recognize. She wondered what it would be like to meet one, to see them in person, and to understand why the Academy had gone to such lengths to ban them. Outside the hall, in the crowded corridors, Jisoo, Hannah, and Teeman continued their discussion. Maybe we underestimated them, Teeman admitted reluctantly. There's something different about humans. Something that doesn't match what we were told. Jisoo rolled her eyes, but did not argue. Even she could not fully dismiss the feeling that humans were not just weak beings. Una walked quietly behind them, her mind still on the footage. She knew that the story of the human man was more than just a warning. It was a lesson about respect, about the dangers of underestimating a species that refused to yield. In her heart, she felt the first spark of understanding that the humans were not to be mocked. They were to be observed carefully and learned from by nightfall. The students returned to their dormitories, still buzzing with gossip and laughter, though the laughter was tinged with a hint of unease. Somewhere in the back of their minds, the images of humans refusing to quit lingered. They had been told humans were weak. They had laughed at the ban. But for the first time, the students began to wonder if perhaps the humans were something far greater than they had imagined. In her room, Una stared at the stars through the wide glass window of her dormitory. She imagined the humans out there, somewhere in the galaxy, pushing forward against impossible odds. She could feel a quiet respect growing within her, a respect that she knew would shape the way she thought about humans for the rest of her life. The ban was no longer just a rule. It was a reminder of the strength and determination of a species that refused to yield, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The next day, the Academy's history module began. The room was filled with students, their chatter bouncing off the walls. Jisoo, Hannah, Teeman, and Una took seats near the front, curious about what the day would bring. Professor Kale entered quietly, and the room fell silent. Today, we will study the official reason for the human ban, he said. You will review the archives and see the evidence yourself. Pay close attention. The holoscreen lit up with the sealed archives. The students leaned forward, eager to watch what they assumed would be old propaganda and exaggeration. The first images were of early human space missions. Ships struggled against gravity and mechanical failures. Some students giggled. Jisoo whispered, They can't even get the engines right. How can anyone take them seriously? Hannah laughed too. It's just as I thought. Weak and clumsy. They will never make it far in space. Teeman stayed quiet. Something about the humans' determination caught his attention. They kept trying, even when everything seemed to go wrong. Their missions were full of risk, but they did not stop. Una's eyes followed every movement, her unease growing. There was more here than anyone realized. As the footage continued, it showed humans landing on dangerous planets. They worked in teams, repairing ships and equipment while surviving harsh conditions. Students began to notice the humans' effort and teamwork. Despite their apparent weakness, they did not retreat. That Professor Kale's voice filled the room. Notice the human determination. Even with failure around them, they continue to push forward. They will not quit. His words were calm, but they carried weight. The images changed. Now, humans were shown repairing damaged ships in space. Oxygen was low. Engines were failing. Some ships were on fire. Alien students murmured, impressed despite themselves. How can they do this? Jisoo asked quietly. They should have given up already. Hannah shook her head. It doesn't make sense. They should be too weak for this. She glanced at Timon, who finally spoke. Maybe their strength is not physical. Maybe it is something else. Something stubborn inside them. Yuna felt her heart beat faster. She realized that the human strength was more than technology or weapons. It was their refusal to give up. Every small act of survival, every mission completed against impossible odds, spoke of a species that refused to surrender. The holoscreen shifted to show humans, defending allied worlds after those allies had surrendered. Entire fleets had fallen back, and humans arrived alone, damaged ships in tow, to hold positions that no one else dared to defend. Students whispered among themselves. They are crazy, one said. Why risk everything when the fight is over? Timon stared at the screen. They fight not to win, but to make sure the enemy cannot chase them. It is like they have no fear of danger. Professor Kale nodded at their reactions. This is the key. Humans do not fight for glory or conquest. They fight to ensure that others cannot threaten them or their allies again. Their determination is unmatched. The students watched, some leaning closer, others shifting uncomfortably. Jisoo felt a mixture of fear and awe. The humans' actions were unlike anything she had seen. Hannah was quiet now, thinking deeply. Even she could not deny the strange power behind the humans' persistence. Yuna's mind raced. She remembered her quiet thoughts from the day before. The humans' refusal to retreat, their willingness to face danger without complaint, made her feel both admiration and caution. She understood why the Academy had banned them. It was not because humans were weak, it was because they were unstoppable once committed. The footage continued, showing humans moving through dangerous asteroid fields, evading enemy ships, and rescuing stranded allies. Their ships were damaged, their crews exhausted, yet they pushed on. Alien students began to fall silent. Their laughter and jokes had disappeared. Now, only awe remained. Professor Kale paused the archive. Remember, the human ban exists not out of hate or fear of anger. It exists because humans are relentless. They will not flee, and they will not forgive. Any species that underestimates them risks destruction. The room stayed quiet. Students processed what they had seen. Jisoo looked at Timon and Hannah, her usual humor gone. I think we were wrong. They are not weak. Not even close. Hannah nodded slowly. I don't know if I can call them fragile anymore. They are. Different. Timon spoke for the first time in a while. We should be careful with humans. Even in stories, their determination is frightening. I don't think any of us can fully understand them yet. Yuna smiled faintly. She was glad someone else had noticed the truth. The lecture ended, but the students were too absorbed in thought to leave immediately. They talked quietly in small groups, trying to grasp what they had seen. The humor and mockery from the previous day were gone. Humans were no longer a joke. They were a force of nature, one that demanded respect. Outside the lecture hall, the corridors buzzed with quiet conversations. Students shared fragments of the footage they had seen, whispering about the humans' bravery, their endurance, and their unwillingness to retreat. Even those who had doubted the footage could not ignore the impact of the human actions. Jisoo, Hannah, Timon, and Yuna walked together in silence for a while. I feel uneasy, Jisoo admitted. We laughed at them yesterday. I didn't realize what they could do. Hannah nodded. I feel the same. There is something about humans that we cannot measure. It is not strength, not weapons, it is spirit. Timin looked at Yuna. Do you think we will ever meet them? She shook her head slightly, unsure. I don't know. But if we do, we should not underestimate them. Yuna smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the twin suns. The human ban is not a punishment, she said softly. It is a warning to every species that humans cannot be taken lightly. The day ended with the students returning to their dormitories, carrying a new understanding. The human ban was no longer a joke or a sign of weakness. It was a lesson. And for those who had truly watched the footage, it was a lesson that would not be forgotten. The humans might be far away, but their spirit and determination were now very real to every student who had seen them. For the first time, the Academy students understood the depth of the warning they had been given. The students returned to the holoscreen room the next morning, their curiosity and unease from the previous day still lingering. Jisoo, Hana, Timin, and Yuna took their usual seats near the front. Professor Kale entered silently and activated the next segment of the archives. The room was quiet. Students no longer laughed or joked. They were ready to face what was to come. The first images were not of exploration, but of combat. Humans, with limited ships and equipment, were defending planets that had already surrendered to enemy forces. Their allies were gone, leaving them alone against overwhelming odds. The alien students whispered among themselves, disbelief written on their faces. Jisoo leaned forward. They can't fight like this. There is no way. They are outnumbered and outgunned. Hannah's mouth was slightly open. Why would they even try? It doesn't make sense. Timin's expression was serious. Look at how they are moving together, covering each other, even when they know they might die. This is not recklessness, it is determination. The holoscreen shifted, showing humans repairing damaged ships while under attack. Sparks flew and alarms blared, yet they continued their work. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. Every human on the screen was risking everything, not for fame, not for glory, but to protect others and prevent the enemy from advancing further. Professor Kale spoke, his voice calm but carrying weight. Notice their tactics. Humans fight not to conquer, but to ensure no one can chase them again. Their focus is not on winning, but on stopping the enemy from pursuing them. The students watched in silence. Jisoo felt her confidence and mockery from earlier slipping away. Hana's laughter was gone, replaced by a heavy awe. Even Timin, who had begun to suspect the truth, felt the full impact of what he was seeing. Humans were unlike any species they had studied or known. Their persistence was terrifying. Next, the footage showed humans moving through enemy-controlled space, heavily damaged ships trailing smoke and fire. Despite the danger, they rescued stranded allies and completed missions that seemed impossible. Each action was methodical, yet driven by a stubborn resolve. Alien students could not understand how they could continue under such pressure. Jisoo whispered, "It is like they cannot be stopped. Even when everything is against them, they keep going." Hana nodded, her eyes wide. It is not about strength or numbers. It is about willpower, something we do not fully understand. Yuna's thoughts were clear. She had felt it before, the human's unyielding spirit, but now she saw it in action. Every small mission, every rescue, every battle was part of a pattern. Humans did not retreat. They did not surrender. They were unstoppable once they committed. The footage continued, showing humans in desperate situations. Ships were failing, supplies were low, and many lives were at risk. Still, the humans advanced, always moving forward, always protecting what they could. The alien students' whispers grew quieter, replaced by silence and awe. They could no longer treat the humans as weak or insignificant. Professor Kale paused the recording. Observe carefully. The human doctrine is clear. Never let the enemy flee, and never leave a threat unchecked. They fight with a resolve that surpasses all logic. This is the reason for the human man. The weight of his words settled over the room. The students, who had come expecting to mock, now understood the danger and respect required. Jisoo stared at the holoscreen, feeling a mixture of fear and admiration. Hannah's face was pale. Teeman leaned forward, his hands clenched. Yuna felt a deep respect for the humans she had never experienced before. The recordings moved to more personal moments. Humans assisting allies who had already surrendered, ensuring their safety, and retreating only after the threat had been neutralized. Each act was small but significant. Even in defeat, humans maintained control, refusing to allow their enemies any advantage. Jisoo whispered to Hana, "They are not just fighters. They are unstoppable. Even when they lose, they don't give up. They make sure no one can challenge them again." Hana nodded slowly. "I think I understand why the ban exists now. It is not punishment. It is caution. They are a force no one should underestimate." Teeman finally spoke. "We laughed yesterday, thinking humans were fragile. We were wrong. Their strength is not visible like ours. It is inside them. The refusal to quit, the protection of others, the courage to face impossible odds. This is their true power." Yuna felt her heart swell with understanding. She had sensed it before, but now she had witnessed it. Humans were relentless. Their determination was absolute. The human ban was a protective measure, not against them personally, but against the potential consequences if any species underestimated them. The lecture ended, but the students lingered. None spoke loudly. The weight of the humans' actions filled their minds. The laughter and mockery of previous days were gone. In its place was a quiet awe and a realization of the depth of human resolve. Outside the holoscreen room, the students walked through the corridors in silence. Each step felt heavier as the truth settled in. The humans, though absent, had left a mark on every student who had witnessed their actions. The stories they had dismissed were real. The humans' relentless spirit was not myth, but a terrifying and awe-inspiring reality. Jisoo, Hana, Teeman, and Yuna eventually gathered in the common area. "I feel humbled," Jisoo admitted. "We thought humans were weak. We were so wrong. They are different." Hana nodded. "I cannot stop thinking about what we saw. Even in situations we would consider hopeless, they did not give up. That is frightening." Teeman looked at Yuna. "Do you think we will ever meet them?" She shook her head, unsure. "I don't know. But if we do, we must remember this lesson. We must never underestimate them." Yuna smiled faintly. "The human ban is not meant to insult them. It is a warning. A reminder to all species that humans cannot be taken lightly. Their strength lies in their determination, and that is a force no one can match." The night fell over the academy, and the students returned to their dormitories. The memory of the humans' actions filled their minds. They had laughed at the human ban, but now they understood. Humans were not to be mocked or dismissed. They were to be respected, cautiously and deeply. The human ban was not a joke, it was a lesson, and one that would shape the students' understanding of the galaxy forever. The students returned to the holoscreen room, their minds still heavy with the lessons of the previous footage. Jisoo, Hana, Teeman, and Yuna settled into their usual seats, anticipating what the next part of the archives would reveal. Professor Kale entered, his segmented arms folded calmly. "Today, we will examine the aftermath of human conflicts," he said, his voice carrying a quiet authority. "This will show you why humans are banned from the academy. The holoscreen lit up with images of devastated worlds. Enemy fleets that had attempted to invade human space were scattered across the galaxy. The humans had pursued them relentlessly. Ships burned and drifted in space, their crews captured or destroyed. Alien students whispered in disbelief. Jisoo's hand covered her mouth. They didn't stop? Even after the battle was won? Hana's eyes widened. Why chase them? They should have stopped and regrouped. Timon's gaze was fixed on the screen. It is not just about victory. They are making sure no one can threaten them again. That is their rule. Never let the enemy flee. The footage showed human ships moving through multiple star systems, tracking retreating enemy forces. Even when the humans suffered losses, they documented every event carefully. They mourned their own and respected their allies. Yet they did not slow down. Every mission was completed with precision and dedication. Jisoo shook her head in awe. It is like they cannot be defeated. Even when the enemy tries to run, they will follow. They never let go. Hana nodded slowly. I have never seen anything like this. Other species retreat, regroup, and surrender. Humans do not. They continue until the threat is completely gone. Yuna felt a deep understanding settle in her heart. The human ban was not arbitrary. It was not to punish humans or to insult them. It was a measure to protect other species from provoking humans, who were relentless and unstoppable once committed. Professor Kale activated the next sequence of footage. It showed humans interacting with the remains of enemy forces. They did not celebrate. They documented and remembered every loss. Humans studied their enemies, learning from mistakes and victories alike. The alien students watched silently, unable to tear their eyes away. Jisoo whispered to Hana, "They are not only fighters, but they are also teachers. They learn from everything, even their battles. That is why they are so strong." Hana nodded. "And that is why they are dangerous. Not because they want to fight, but because they never stop, never retreat, and never forget." Timon leaned forward. "The ban is not just for us to laugh at. It is a warning. Humans are unstoppable. If any species underestimates them, the consequences could be devastating." Yuna remained quiet, her mind absorbing the lesson. She realized that humans were more than stories or legends. They were a force that could not be ignored. The footage then showed humans in quiet moments, away from battles. They tended to their injured, shared supplies with allies, and held memorials for those lost. They were compassionate and disciplined. Their strength was not only in combat, but in their dedication to each other and to the missions they undertook. Jisoo spoke softly. "I think I understand now. Humans are not just fighters. They are relentless, careful, and compassionate. That is why the ban exists. It is not punishment. It is protection for all species." Hana agreed, her voice quiet. "We mocked them without understanding. Now I see that the human strength is not physical, not just in weapons or ships. It is in their spirit, their will, and their unity." Timon nodded slowly. "We must remember this lesson. Any encounter with humans requires caution and respect. They are not like any other species we know." Yuna's eyes reflected the light of the holoscreen. She felt respect and a hint of fear. The humans' power lay not in what they had, but in who they were and how they acted. Every action, every decision, every battle demonstrated their unyielding nature. The human ban was a shield, a way to prevent conflict before it began. As the lecture ended, the students remained silent. The impact of the footage had changed them. They had come expecting humor, but they had received a lesson in respect and caution. Jisoo, Hana, Timon, and Yuna walked together in the quiet corridors, each lost in thought. Jisoo finally broke the silence. "I feel ashamed. We laughed at something we didn't understand. Humans are incredible. Hana nodded, her eyes downcast. We underestimated them. That was foolish. Tiemann added, we have to remember this. The human strength is not visible in the way we are used to seeing it. It is in their determination, their care for allies, and their refusal to yield. That is why the man exists. Yuna smiled faintly. Yes, the human ban is a warning, not an insult. It is a reminder that humans are not to be taken lightly. The students returned to their dormitories in silence, each reflecting on what they had witnessed. The human ban was no longer a joke. It was a lesson written in the actions of a species that refused to retreat. They had laughed at the humans, mocked their supposed weakness, but now they knew the truth. Humans were unstoppable once committed, and that understanding would stay with them forever. The days after viewing the final footage were quiet at the academy. The students who had once mocked the human ban now moved with a sense of reflection and respect. Jisoo, Hana, Tiemann, and Yuna walked together through the corridors, their conversations subdued but thoughtful. They had seen the humans' relentless determination and compassion, and it had changed them profoundly. In the common area, small groups of students discussed what they had learned. Some were still in disbelief, trying to grasp how humans could continue against impossible odds. Others quietly admitted that their laughter had been foolish. The atmosphere of the academy had shifted from casual amusement to serious contemplation. The humans, though absent, had made their presence felt. Jisoo spoke softly to Hana and Tiemann. I never thought I would feel respect for a species we had never met. But after seeing them in action, I can't help but admire them. Hana nodded, her eyes reflective. It's more than admiration. It is understanding. Humans are not to be underestimated. Their will, their unity, their refusal to quit it is something we have rarely seen. Tiemann added, the human ban is not just a rule. It is a lesson, a warning. Any species that encounters humans must be careful. Their strength is in their spirit, not just their technology. Yuna smiled, feeling a sense of quiet satisfaction. Yes, and now that we understand, we can carry that lesson forward. Respect is the only proper response. To laugh or mock would be dangerous and foolish. The academy began to change subtly in the weeks that followed. Human culture studies, once ignored or dismissed, became the most attended subjects. Students wanted to understand more about the humans, their history, their strategies, their values. Books, holoscreens, and simulations were studied with serious attention. Even those who had doubted the humans now felt the weight of their lessons. Memorials were built for human and alien lives lost together in old conflicts. Students participated in quiet ceremonies, honoring the bravery and sacrifice of those who had come before. Jisoo, Hana, Tiemann, and Yuna attended, feeling a deep connection to the stories they had once mocked. The memorials reminded everyone that humans were not only fighters but teachers, protectors, and survivors. Rumors began to circulate that humans might return to the academy, not as soldiers, but as teachers. The idea that humans could enter the academy to share their knowledge and experience was met with excitement and a deep sense of respect. No one laughed at the thought. Instead, anticipation and reverence filled the halls. Jisoo looked at her friends and said quietly, if humans come, we must remember everything we have learned. They are not here for conquest or pride. They are here to teach and protect, to ensure we understand their ways. Hana nodded. Yes, we must honor that. Their lessons are invaluable, Tiemann added, and we must never forget the warning. The human ban exists not to punish humans, but to protect everyone else. Their determination is unmatched. To provoke them would be unwise. Yuna smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the twin suns outside. We now know the truth. Humans are unstoppable once committed. That knowledge will guide us from now on. The academy continued its work, but the students carried a new sense of purpose. They studied harder, listened more carefully, and treated every lesson with the seriousness it deserved. Jisoo, Hana, Timin, and Yuna found themselves quietly teaching their peers, sharing insights they had gained from the archives. Respect for humans became a quiet but strong culture within the academy. One evening, the four friends sat on a balcony overlooking the academy grounds. The stars twinkled in the dark expanse, and the gas giant below reflected their light in shimmering colors. Jisoo broke the silence. "I never thought a species we never met could leave such a mark on us. But humans have. I feel changed." Hana nodded. "We all have." The human ban was a warning, yes, but it was also a lesson in humility, courage, and determination. We can carry this forward in everything we do. Timin added, "And when humans return, we will be ready to learn from them, not mock them. That is the proper way to honor what we have seen." Yuna smiled. "Yes, the human strength lies in more than battles. It is in their spirit, their compassion, and their refusal to retreat. That is the lesson we must never forget." As the academy continued its daily life, the students understood that the human ban was a story of caution, respect, and awe. They had laughed and mocked, but now they knew the truth. Humans were a species like no other, unstoppable, relentless, and deeply honorable. The lesson was clear. Respect those who never retreat, and honor those who protect others at any cost. The story of the human ban, once a joke, became a foundation for the academy's teachings. Every student who walked the halls carried with them the memory of what humans could do. Jisoo, Hana, Timin, and Yuna shared the story quietly but passionately, ensuring the lesson would not be forgotten. The human's legacy, though distant, had changed the academy forever, teaching lessons of courage, unity, and relentless determination that would last across generations.